At this time, I'd like to call the Hamilton County Justice Center Jail Project Committee to order. We will be interviewing today 2 of the 7 vendors for project manager. You have your binders. Please find the list of the vendors who have applied. Also, you will find the evaluation criteria sheet. This sheet is for you to evaluate the vendor. Also, please find the evaluation instructions, which I will go over. The vendor will be introduced and given 15 minutes to introduce himself and his experience. I will then be asking 7 questions to each vendor. I would ask commissioners if you have a question or questions that you wait till after I've asked all the questions submitted. I will then open up the floor for questions from commissioners for the vendor. The evaluation instructions are as follows. Each vendor has a separate section containing their evaluation sheets and their submitted qualifications. Each vendor section contains evaluation criteria forms, list of interview questions, the qualifications submitted, and reference questions and answers received. Evaluation criteria is broken down into 6 sections with a maximum number of points that can be assigned. These are listed below. I have listed where you can find the information needed to evaluate each section. You will assign points to each section based on the information provided. These evaluation sheets need to be turned in by August 11th. And at this time, I want to recognize and thank John Harrell for all her hard work and time that she's put into this process, and ask her to introduce our vendor.
Thank you, Chairman Horner. I wanted to quickly review the RFQ process, which is what we're doing. Vendors submit their qualifications, their experience, their education. They've also submitted references of previous projects of similar size in their submissions. So what your job is to do is to use that evaluation criteria to score each vendor based on the list that's on that sheet. There's a maximum number of points that you can give, and as we go through this process, you'll complete that form after everyone does their presentation and interviews. Also, the reference Q&As, those, I'm still waiting on some of those to get back. So Matthews is the only one that we have completed, so it's there tonight. As I get those completed, I'll send those to you. I'll need that evaluation criteria back by next Tuesday. I'll use those points that you assign, and I'll tabulate that. The vendor that has the most points, that's the vendor that we will bring in to negotiate price. If we can't come to an agreement on the cost, then the next vendor with the highest points will start negotiating with them. So it's a little bit different than what we did the last time. If you have any questions about your binders, see me tonight after the meeting, see me anytime this week. I want you just to be comfortable with it. There's a lot of information in there, really. So we'll go ahead and move forward. Matthew, I'm going to try to pronounce your last name. Forgive me if I don't do it well. Matthew Debardelaben?
Debardelaben.
I'm sorry. Okay.
Great. Thank you all for letting me come visit tonight. My name is Matthew Debardelaben. I live in Knoxville, Tennessee. Previously lived in Jefferson County in Strawberry Plains, but have actually moved into Knoxville, and that's where I have done most of my work over the last 10 years. So when I was having a beer with a good friend who's a general contractor, and we do that often, talk about the state of construction, design and construction. And I'm very frustrated about one piece of it, and that is you have an architect, you have a client, and you have a contractor, and they end up competing against one another, and it makes projects painful. It can drag out the schedule, it can cost more money, and so we've always argued, what's a better way to structure this? And as we were sitting together the other night, I guess about 2 weeks ago, he said, hey, I saw an RFQ in Hamlin County. That's what we should be doing. They're hiring somebody to manage that project, those relationships, to represent the county, which is the very first thing I saw. So on page 2 of the RFQ, it basically says the project manager will represent the county. It's the very first thing it says. So I understand if I was to become a project manager for Hamlin County, that my first role is to represent the county, and specifically this project. So we talked about that. But then in that same on page 2, it says, to ensure a successful project, the chosen project manager will work with county staff, project architect, engineer of record, various consultants, construction contractors to safely deliver a quality facility that meets county objectives and design specifications. So as I was looking at that, I thought, working with county staff, I've done that before. I had the privilege to get to work with the city of Knoxville, in particular the public PBA, the Public Building Authority, and they handle basically all the properties for both the city of Knoxville as well as the county. And so I got to the MPC, which is, they've now rebranded themselves, but they're the Metro Planning Commission. I got to do their 2 floors, including engineering, all interior construction. So in that case, I was working for Synergy Business Environments, so I was a salesperson as well as a project manager. And that was my one requirement when I worked for that sales organization, is that I had to do my own project management, because I had to know what was happening out there in the field. So I've worked with county officials before. Other equivalent county officials with the Knoxville, besides the Knoxville Public Authority, the city and the county, KUB, which is the utility board, they operate under very similar rules. TVA, the University of Tennessee, Newport Utility Districts, these are all interior construction projects that I've been a part of and had to work with county officials. So that was the first part of this. And then second, it said to work with project architects. And that is another passion of mine. I'm not an architect. I have no background in design. I've done a lot of reading about it and spent a lot of time with architects and interior designers. And as a reflection of the respect that my peers have for me, I was on the board of the American Institute of Architects for East Tennessee for 3 years. I've been the design chair of their jury for the last 2 years. I'm on the Downtown Knoxville Alliance board. I'm the vice chair right now. I'll be chair next year. And basically, we think about how business and design meets downtown Knoxville specifically. And then I'm also on the board for the Downtown Design Review Board. So we look at plans and make sure that the people who are coming to do those projects are following the guidelines. And so my peers as architects have allowed me to be involved in those things. Another thing it said here with engineers, I work with quite a few engineers. Usually my role with an engineer is to basically pass their submittals from them to the architect and back. Because it takes me some time to understand the details, the specifications, the things that are required for those things to take place. When I work with engineers in that manner, as well as, I don't think it would come up with this project, but it probably comes up in every project, and that is the unforeseen. And so working with an engineer, how can we creatively accomplish what needs to be accomplished without blowing the budget? And so I've had to do that with engineers, and it's been an important part of my work. Various consultants, primarily as I was thinking about this, interior designers, some behavioral health I've got to work with. So there are certain requirements in healthcare situations and behavioral health situations where you can't have sharp corners, you can't have stuff that can be removed. And so learning what those specifications, those requirements are, and making sure that they're executed in a project. In my application, I put I had not done any courthouse stuff, but I forgot that I did provide seating for the Eastern District of Tennessee Federal Court, both in Greenville and Knoxville. So not very broad there, but I worked within that system of the federal court, and again, certain requirements being required there. And then finally on that description, it says to work with contractors, and I've done a bunch of that. And sometimes it's easy, great work, like with my friend I was with last week, and other times it's hold their feet to the fire. But most of all in these things, I believe it's communication, education, learning, and really being organized in the approach to the project. So again, as my friend and I were sitting together last week, and he mentioned this opportunity, I thought this is something I'm interested in. So I want to come up here and share what I can do and hear more about the project through time. I've included my CV, which is my resume there. I don't know if you've got a chance to look at it, but I've been on a little bit of different of a journey. So I 11 years in the interior construction and furniture industry. before that, spent 6 years living in China, ran an art gallery, which we built out that space there. I was a chaplain for the Chicago Bears. They're Protestant chaplains. I lived in Chicago and traveled 3 years with them for that. I know I don't look it, I'll be 48 on Wednesday, and so my qualifications are kind of there. So I will stop there and ask if you have any questions about my CV or what I shared so far.
I'm going to call you Mr. D, is that okay?
That's fine.
Just some questions here. What is your company's understanding of the project manager role as it relates to this project?
So as I understand the role, again, so it's basically you have a client, which is the county, and the county has a mission, and that is to build a courthouse and a jail. So if that's your client. You have an architect who's been hired to design this, and they've worked with the client so far to come up with what is hopefully a design that both will be aesthetically and useful for 100 years. And that's the goal. So now you're looking for a contractor who will build that building in a safe manner with quality construction and within budget and on time. And so the role of project manager is to work between all those pieces and make sure that the steps are being taken, so that pictures are being taken out in the field, reports are being given between the architect when the contractor has a question that he's unable to discern an answer to. Then he sends a submittal to the project manager. We go to the architect and look and say, how can we meet your intent? What exactly do you want here? Keeping it on schedule. Making sure, then on top of that, there are important things like making sure people get paid on time, making sure that they're submitting what they need to submit so that they can get paid on time, making sure that they're ordering their materials on time so the project doesn't get slowed down. So I think as a project manager, it's just really staying on top of all those things and making sure that by knowing what the architect is up to and what the contractor and subs that are up to, we can meet what the county needs as a client.
How many of your projects were completed within or under budget?
I would say at least 75% within budget, another probably 10 to 15% under budget, and then there's always the occasional that you have to go back and ask for some more money.
Have there been any projects you did not fully complete? And if there were, please explain and why.
There have not been a single project that I've not fully completed.
Have there been any incidents where you were suspended or terminated from a project? And if there were, please explain and why.
There have been none.
Have you had any litigation or claims related to projects you were hired to oversee that have been settled in the past 5 years?
No.
Do you have any current pending litigation?
I do not.
How often will you be on site to evaluate the progress of this project?
So I need to learn more about it. 5 days is what I would think. I know the qualifications had said 3 to 5 depending. And so part of it is really understanding the scope and knowing if every day requires a site visit or if an office day is as advantageous one day. So but it would be a full-time job.
At this time, I will open the floor for questions from any commissioner.
I noticed in your description that most of your experience has dealt with exterior components, interior. Have you had any experience at all with the exterior?
I have, but only in coordination. So I've never actually, this is why I think this is useful, I've never actually been that project manager for the exterior of a building, only for the interior. That said, I've been a part of a project from day one, and just had to keep up with, often, especially with construction schedules as they go right now, we're putting stuff in the building while the exterior is still being worked upon. So I've been around plenty of it, but it's not been my scope of responsibility to, for instance, to make sure that the right brick was being applied to the outside of the building. But I watched it be done.
Have you had any experience analyzing concrete that's used in the facility to make sure that the supplier is meeting the requirements of the architect?
So not concrete in particular, but it sounds very similar to just any kind of quality control. So of another material, so whether it's been glass or gypsum or other carbon like that. So not specific to concrete, but I would believe it would be the same process of making sure that whoever that concrete sub is, he's gonna be working with he's gonna be working with a concrete supplier and making sure that they are submitting samples that go to the architect, or to the engineer if relevant, to make sure that they meet what is being required.
Thank you.
You don't have much of a staging area over here.
So I've not seen it, so what,
Look out this window, you can practically see.
okay.
You know, it'll take some, I don't know if you would handle all of that or what, but it'll take some juggling of components coming in, because there's just isn't much room.
Right.
So, you're aware of that? Have you handled that before?
I've handled that before, so one example is one of my references there is the Thomas Group. It's on Gay Street, right in the middle down. We could not shut down the street. We were able to take some parallel parking spots away. There was no loading dock. And the building was challenging because it was actually 3 historic buildings that they were turning into one building. So it took getting creative. And in my experience, it's where the expectations of the architect and the contractor and their subs need to be on the same page. Because usually what happens is, so a contractor will say, okay, we're bringing the steel in at this time, we're bringing that, and maybe the steel guy didn't explain well enough the conditions, and so that person says, hey, this is going to cost us more than we thought, we need more money. And so just making sure at the front end that the contractor understands what this scope is and the challenges, so that steel person, when they quote it, they're not feeling like they're going to get burnt and come back ask for more money.
Any more questions?
Yeah, back in, you had on your resume here, in 2009, you were with the Discovery that you worked on yet. I was working for a company out of Nashville.
I was, so Synergy Business Environments Scripps was what it originally, Discovery was the Scripps building, and Synergy was based in Nashville and Knoxville, has offices both places. I was living in that time in Nashville, but coming over to Knoxville for 2 or 3 days a week for that project.
Okay. When you come across a job, well, not looking for somebody to cut corners, we're looking for somebody to, when you say saving money, how in your way would you save money yet not cut corners? How would you do something?
I guess I can think of examples. So part of it is a supplier issue. So someone may want to work with the supplier because they have a certain relationship, but they might be able to get that same material from another supplier for less money. And so if looking at that budget, you're saying, man, that brick is, it's $4 a square foot, we've got to be able to find it for free. So then working with them, so one way is that supplier relationship. And then I think the other is just creative solutions. So sit down with the architect and figure out from the architect, what is your intent? And then come up with some options and say, will this meet your intent if we build it this way? Like if we change this, this color of brick or whatever that might be, and making sure, never doing anything that would not meet the architect's design intent, but really trying to understand what their design intent is so that you can offer them a solution.
You're by yourself now, correct?
Correct.
Okay, if you were to hire someone, what would you look for when you hire someone? Now, understand something, we need someone who's right there with you on this.
Right.
And are you looking to hire one more or more?
Well, and that's where I don't entirely understand the scope of this project, just from this RFQ. And so I thought of 2 things. So one, there's a young man who actually does some construction for me right now and other stuff. And he's young, he's eager, just a go-getter. So someone like that is 30 and single, and therefore it's time to get to the job. And would be able to
work. You would trust that person if you was not there?
I would, yes. I wouldn't, not if it came to a big decision, I'd want to be a part of that. But I would trust him on the site. I would trust him to report to me anything that would need to be reported. The other thing that I've thought about is, again, so because of some of my strong relationships with general contractors, there may be appropriate for one of their, if they're not bidding for this job, which none of the ones I know are, there may be an opportunity for me to utilize one of their junior project managers as a part of it as well. So.
Describe your job now, what you're doing now.
Okay, so I work for Blue Botanicals, and basically, it's what's represented in that state seal right there, agriculture and commerce. So I work with farmers right now to grow industrial hemp for different products, and then I'm in charge of our international business. So as a small entrepreneurial company, we're 2 years old. We grew 62 people within 6 months because we had a $30 million investment. Some of that money went away and the market dried up. And so we're now 6 employees, and I figure it's a good time for me to be looking for something else to do. But I've greatly enjoyed working with farmers. We contract with 132 farmers in Tennessee and Kentucky to grow 1,500 acres of material this year. So.
Any other questions?
Mr. Chairman, can I ask a question, please?
Yes, sir.
Define, or your experience has been in interior work. Define what, I guess, what that means, what kind of work is involved in all that, and the scope of what you have done and what experience you do have.
Okay, so one of our primary manufacturers is they do prefab construction, and they actually manufacture in a factory in Calgary, Phoenix, Arizona, and Savannah, Georgia. And so it's rapid construction. And so what we would do is we would begin with the architect on the design phase and come up with, explain what the material is, and then come up with phasing and how it's going to go into the building. And basically it would be, if all your interior walls were built in a factory, designed in a factory, including power, including data, including plumbing. And so it's a very sustainable way of doing construction. And so that was a big part. And so everything from working with the drywaller, with the plumber, to the electrician, to the flooring, clearly with the contractor, understanding where, where my 20 to 30 weeks of construction fit within their 60 to 80 weeks of construction. So really coordinating that, and then also other interior elements from from this podium to that railing to carpentry type stuff like that. So pretty much anything that was in the interior, and then interacting with one of the other subs who has to connect to your interior. So whether that's the electrician, the plumber, the flooring person, the ceiling person, drywall, stuff like that.
So did you represent the owner when you did that work, or who did you represent?
In 90% of the cases, I represented the owner. Very often, it was the contractor who would introduce me to the owner, or the architect who would introduce me to the owner.
I want to make sure that, provided, if you were the one, that you're not trying to reinvent the wheel. You say you're a problem solver, you're willing to work with others, and, we're not looking for somebody just to make a show. We need some quality work.
Understood.
And I just want to make certain we're not trying to be adversarial, but yet be our.
No, I understand completely. That's where, again, I'm glad that you asked the question that you did. Just want to make sure you understand what my scope has been. But I'm standing here for you today because I think I'm capable of the bigger thing. I do have more questions about the project.
We see a lot of conflict, when you get the architect and contractors together, a contractor brings in a subcontractor you're not approving of, how are you going to handle that?
I think I would be honest with the contractor, but if he has the contract, he has some freedom to hire who he wants to, but he just needs to understand the consequences if the work is shoddy and it's going to have to be pulled out. It's slow and gets us behind.
What about references, Bill? Will the project manager be involved in the references of subcontractors? I didn't know if that would be anything like that.
I'd say there'd be some conversations with the GC.
Well, in the RFQ, it mentioned part of the role was a part of that selection process, maybe not power in it, but some kind of, I can't remember the wording itself.
Ex officio, maybe?
Yeah, participating, at least being a part as that process happens, which I think makes sense, so.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Day.
All right, thank you all very much.
Thank you.
have some slides. Do you have any handouts or anything? Okay. This is Curtis Ellswick. He's with SKANSKA. Did I pronounce that correctly?
She did.
Oh, wow, okay, good. Let me get you set up here. Hamlin County, is it the first one?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Here's your remote.
Mr. Ellsworth, thank
Yes,
you
sir.
for being here and for your interest in our project. I'm going to give you 15 minutes to introduce yourself and your experience, and then we'll have questions, and then we'll let the commission ask you questions. So, go ahead.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. It's good to be in Hamlin County. We sincerely appreciate the opportunity to be here. I'm smiling. You can't probably see it now. I'll smile with my eyes. But we do appreciate, we know this is a huge project for the county, and it's very important to the citizens, and so we want to get it right. And again, we appreciate the opportunity to be here. We understand we have 15 minutes, so we're going to jump in if that's okay. So a little bit about SKANSKA. We're a nationally recognized project management and construction management firm. We're kind of unique is that we're a builder, we're a contractor, but we also serve as an owner's rep project manager on projects where we're not the builder as well. Do a lot of public sector work. We're currently managing about $1.5 billion of public work across the country. Your RFQ, you define large projects as over $40 million, and so we have over 550 of those, including 26 in Tennessee, which we're going to talk about. And a significant amount of judicial and justice center type experience. 9 justice and jail center projects over $40 million. A few more of those that's under $40 million that we'll highlight. 16 judicial center and courthouse projects, and actually a lot of those are in far southwest Virginia and you'll see in East Tennessee. 10 public safety building and police facilities as well. So we bring a lot of experience and lessons learned and best practices for those kind of projects. We'll highlight a little bit of our experience in Tennessee. We actually built the Knoxville Juvenile Justice Center, the Howard Baker Federal Courthouse in Knoxville, and we're currently working on the Knoxville Public Safety Complex where they're changing a hospital into a public safety building, which is pretty complex in itself. Our goal is always to have a successful project and help you get across that goal line. And we also, when we get involved with projects, we get ingrained into your community. So you'll see our name being involved with local organizations and being a fabric of your local community as well. A little bit about our team. My name is Curtis Ellswick. I'm a Senior Vice President at SKANSKA. I have over 20 years experience. I'm a certified construction manager. And I've completed several, and I'm currently working on several Justice Center and Judicial Center projects throughout the larger region. So I like doing those kind of projects. I'm here to provide support to the guy behind me who's going to talk here in a second, Tim. I'm really here to make sure he's got all the tools and the resources. If for some reason he can't be here, I'm here to support him. You always have somebody as your eyes and ears on this project. So with that, I'm going to let Tim talk.
Good evening, glad to be here. My name is Tim Burge, and I've got about 40 years construction experience. I started out as a laborer and worked my way up to a carpenter, to a superintendent, and now I'm in program management. I am a certified construction manager. I've built large projects as a superintendent as well. Right now, I've currently done 3 courthouses with jail facilities inside them, one in Dickinson County, and another in Charlotte County, and another in Halifax County.
I mentioned Tim has support, so we always, when we approach projects, we always want to make sure there's a backup, right? So if Tim has to go on vacation, which he rarely does, or has a sick day, or whatever may come up, there will always be somebody here supporting you, and to be here is your out ears, like I said. So we have an assistant project manager, Brandon Taylor, who's worked on several courthouses with Tim. They know each other well, they work well together. And then Walt Wheeler has built or managed several large complex jail facilities across the country, and serving in a role as an owner's project manager. So he'll be there as an advisor for the whole team, the design team, house if we need him. The good thing about this, timing's perfect. Tim is wrapping up a project. It's a 75,000 square foot addition to a middle school. Substantial completion inspection Wednesday, and so the contractor and the whole project will wrap up in the next few weeks. So the timing is great, and so we're really excited about that.
So here are some of the highlights of the experience that I have on judicial centers. Like I mentioned earlier, the Charlotte County Courthouse, that was a very successful project. Dickinson County Judicial Center was the first one I worked on, and it went very well. And then the Halifax Courthouse, same thing. These each had different types of jail systems in them, some more sophisticated than others. So I've worked with several different types. Some of the larger projects I've worked on is like the Ridgeview High School Middle School project in Clintwood, Virginia, which was $85.5 million. Montgomery County Schools, Virginia, we had 2 high schools that were going on at the same time, and we also had a middle school we had to do when we completed. So, and I've also worked on like hospitals, office buildings, so about anything that's been built, I've done it before.
And all these projects have been done in the last 6 years or so?
Yes.
We want to highlight some of our other relevant experience. We are currently involved, we have a full-time project manager on the Knoxville Public Safety Building. That's in the demolition abatement phase. Like I mentioned, we've done the Knoxville Juvenile Justice Center, several courthouses, federal courthouses, county courthouses. We built the Wake County Detention Center in Raleigh several years back, as well as the Seminole County Correctional Facility outside Orlando, and another jail facility in Texas. We're currently managing, as the owner's rep, a jail facility for Bay County, Florida, that was impacted by Hurricane Michael. And so it's a disaster recovery project where the jail is staying operational while we're doing some much needed renovations. I'm also recently completed another courthouse jail facility in Buchanan County, which is part of Southwest Virginia. Tim and I worked on an exterior rehab of the historic Dickinson County Courthouse. And as of tonight, the Board of Supervisors in Russell County, Virginia, and Lebanon will approve an RFP that I prepared for the design build team to renovate and expand their courthouse. So, don't talk about us for a minute, talk about you. We understand your project is needed because your current Justice Center houses about 420 inmates on an average day, but you only have 255 beds, which causes a lot of safety concerns, especially right now with the COVID situation, I'm sure, as well as the building's 40 years old. And so your new Justice Center is planning for the future. You're looking to build a 625 bed jail facility. It's got 2 general district courtrooms in it, and then a criminal courtroom as well, and then all the support spaces. We've heard, just listening, going to your website and learn as much as we can, that the budget is 65 million, I've heard 75 million possibly. Those are the architects. He's the architect of record out of Charlotte. I recently worked with them on some school projects in Virginia, so we're well aware of Mosley. But design is wrapping up. They plan to have construction documents ready next month. We get the project bid out, start construction early 2021. And we're understanding that you're looking for a project manager that has experience with large-scale projects such as that, and that preferably has experience with jail and justice centers, and that's why we have Tim here. A little bit about our approach, how we do project management. We see ourselves as an extension of your staff as part of your team. We like to work with the design team and the contractor to partner and make it a successful project, but we always hold people accountable to what's in their contract as well. We find ourselves resolving issues before they become problems. That's, a lot of times we find ourselves as a mediator between the architect and the contractor or other people to get things done. Issues resolved quickly so they don't become the bigger problems. Transparent, this is a publicly funded project. We understand transparency is very important. And Tim's going to talk about some of the reports that we do that'll keep the public informed. But we also look for ways to save money and not cut out program or spaces. And, you know, we do a lot of owner direct purchase. We save on different, like sales tax. There's different ways that we can do that. And then we're known for closing out projects in a very quick manner so they don't linger on other people.
So part of our other approach is here that in our first 30 days, we want to hold a kickoff meeting with all the stakeholders and find out what the expectations are. We want to set up the communication protocol and what reporting requirements are required. You know, we want to review the current design documents. I know we won't have long to review them, but we'll do a constructability review what we can. We'll develop a detailed milestone schedule, so we got an overall big schedule of all the big things that need to happen. We'll work to validate the budget, making sure we have people in-house that can validate costs that for the project. We can also validate the accounting and processes, develop a project management plan. And then we'll start working on pre-qualifying and prepare RFQs for September for contractors. So in our contractor procurement stage, we'll be, like I said, pre-qualifying contractors, general contractors, and evaluating their SOQs, participate in pre-bid and review of the addendas. We'll work with Mosley on the bid receipt and opening and bid tabulations. Assist in negotiations with the low bidder in case it were to come over budget or something. There's a couple of case studies. The project I'm on right now, Bedford County Middle School, we were able to identify $616,510 of VE within a week to get it in the budget. We recommend award and contract preparation. We'll help you prepare the contract, making sure the contractor has all the bonds and insurance they need and in compliance. And then we'll help execute the contract and issuance a notice to proceed. Construction phase services. Like I said, I'll be on site. I'm your eyes and ears on site, watching what's going on every day, making sure the rebar's there, the concrete there, the ground's right. Whatever may come up, all throughout the project. Quality assurance, be making sure that materials are correct and that the workmanship is acceptable as to industry standard. One project I was on, 5 o'clock morning concrete pour, amen. Let me see the concrete tickets. They had 8 concrete trucks lined up, the pump truck had already put the grout in. Let me see your ticket. It was normal weight concrete and it called for lightweight. Able to stop the pour, possibly save collapse of the structure or people getting hurt or killed. So that's the kind of stuff that, you know, with experience you can look at things and find out. Pre-installation coordination meetings, we'll be working with the contractor on those. Document control, do submittals, review submittals, review archives, review sketches. Change order evaluation, making sure that you're not paying for something that you shouldn't pay for. It's already in the contract. Another example was, the contractor said, y'all owe us $30,000 for a library system. So, it's right here in the documents you owed it to us. So it'll save the owner about $30,000. Had we not been there, they'd have probably just paid it. So, contractor schedule evaluation, making sure they're staying on schedule. When they fall behind, they can ask for a recovery schedule to get caught back up. Pay application, we'll review those, invoices, processing, whatever. Help with the final punch list with architects, getting that prepared, getting it done. And then we'll help with your FFE and move management after the project is complete. Some of the communications and reporting that we do all the time. We'll tailor it to whatever y'all want. I will be doing daily reports. I can do a weekly report, monthly report, whatever y'all want us to do. We even can do update on websites if you like, to keep the public informed. Going through closeout, want to make sure your staff gets their training. Maintenance people know what to do and how to operate the new systems that are in these buildings nowadays. Making sure that you get what you're paid for. And then we want to make sure you get all your warranties and all your other closeout documents, O&M manuals. And then we transition to a nice, smooth closeout, which makes the project a lot better if we can do a smooth closeout.
Tim, take a breather. So, hopefully we got enough time here, but we wanted to say why SKANSKA. We feel like we bring the relevant experience to this project. We've done a lot of courthouse judicial centers from Southwest Virginia to Knoxville. We're unique in that we're a builder, which means we know what things cost in the market, especially these days with a lot of unknowns around COVID and what that means. We can look at a schedule and say there's things you left out or a contractor you're behind and you need to make up in these areas or ask for a recovery schedule. And always focusing on quality. That's one thing Tim is known for, is if they're putting in the wrong materials, he catches it in the field before it becomes a problem. We come with a plan. We know what to do from day one. We have a 30-day plan to jump in and get acclimated and be part of the team. We're always looking to save you money, which we know is important. This is a locally funded project. And we're responsive. I will commit to you as a senior vice president of the company that Tim will live here, Tim will reside here. He's already talked about where he wants to look to find to live, maybe it's a lake, I don't know. But he's committed to be a local throughout the duration of this project, which we know is important. And our reputation, hopefully you've had a chance to talk to our references. I know some of them came in a little late. And like I mentioned, timing's perfect. You get Tim, he's coming off a project that's going to be finally complete in a few weeks, so he's available almost immediately to jump in and make an impact to the project and be part of your team. So with that, we would be honored to be a part of the Hampton County team and to serve as your project manager. Can we do it in 15?
Okay, I'm going to ask you a few questions. Some of you may have already answered. I'll skip the first one because I was going to ask you your understanding of the project management. Obviously, you know what that is. How many of your projects were completed within or under budget?
You're talking about as a company, or you're talking about me again?
And program management.
As a project manager.
I mean, all of them complete within budget unless the owner adds scope. We come to find out that a lot of our projects, they have money at the end, and so we add a lot of things. Especially with courthouses, once judges get in and see things, they like things a little bit different maybe. Sometimes we have to raise a bench or lower a bench or something, but I would say ask our references. We have a reputation for making sure projects come in on time and under budget.
Have there been any projects you did not fully complete, and if there were, please explain and why?
Yeah, I got a good example. One project we talked about was the renovation of in addition to the Halifax County Courthouse in Virginia. We were hired as the owner's project manager at that time. County administrators changed, board of supervisors changed. They hired a new county administrator who was a professional engineer. They hired him because he was a professional engineer and decided that as part of his job, they would maybe utilize his service on the courthouse. And so they wrote us a nice letter and said, we think we can take it from here. And it was at a good stopping point when they were getting ready to add scope to the project. So no fault of ours.
Have there been any incidents where you were suspended or terminated from a project, and if there were, please explain why?
Yes. Well, that one, but yeah. Terminated for convenience, I would say.
Have you had any litigation or claims related to the projects you were hired to oversee that have been settled in the past 5 years? If so, please explain.
0 as a project manager in 20 years.
Do you have any current pending litigation?
No. Not as a company, because we're a big contractor.
Right.
We probably, but not as an owner's project manager. No, sir.
How often will you be on site to evaluate progress of this project?
Every day.
I will be there every day.
This time I want to open the floor up for any questions from any commissioner.
No questions. Were y'all involved with the Lifeway and the Nissan and the Natural, y'all
Yeah.
work?
We broke that.
That was awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
Anyway, I got a question.
Take your time.
How many y'all ever done with Mosley Architect? Have you done any y'all, how many have you done with them?
I just finished a master plan study with them on the school program, and actually in Halifax County, Virginia, where we worked with them for that period of time.
Okay.
Different group, it was not the Charlotte office, it was the Richmond office.
Well, they drop it as it, I know you may not be in New Jersey, but you have one close by here, Nashville or somewhere in your office?
Office.
We have an office in Franklin.
Franklin,
Yeah.
yes you do. That's all.
Tim, as a project manager, what's been your biggest hurdle you've had to overcome on a particular project?
Biggest hurdle overcoming on the project. I would say, I hate to say it, but dealing with some contractors that were not competent. I don't like to say that, but,
Over their head.
you know, the project was more than they were really able to do. As far as learning curve, you know, I have to learn something every day. You know, all electronics nowadays, they change. So electronics is changing, you know, everything is automated now, and knowing how that programming and world works. So that's a little challenge. As far as construction of the building, that's no big deal. You know, it's a lot of things. I work well with people, and I can usually work out stuff, you know, that's going on. I don't know what else to tell you. That
Have you had trouble with a lot of change orders?
not usually, depending on the project. If you have a good set of documents, there's no harm in it. If you have a bad set of documents, there can be many.
Have you worked with Mosley on any of your projects?
I personally have not. Curtis has worked with them on a
School project.
but I personally not.
Okay. You mentioned, you know, inspecting the facility at the very end and everything like that. I know one of the jails that we visited, this was a major concern on the part of the sheriff, because some of the construction workers would leave little things in there that a prisoner could use to, like, become a weapon or something like that. How thorough will your inspections be at the end?
My inspection will be very thorough. We'll do the punch list. And then I will definitely walk through every cell, whatever, making sure that there's nothing laying around. And as construction's going on, make sure there's not junk up above the ceiling that they might can. Most of them have security ceilings anyway, so it's hard to get up there anyway. But there's always, you know, okay, somebody left a can up there or something. But I'll be, you know, like I said, I'm gonna be watching it, making sure it's clean as a contractor works every day, making sure they're not leaving stuff laying in the walls and everything, because I know that can become a problem.
There's a lot of things that I guess maybe the public's not aware of that has to be done and has to be included in the jail, like a prisoner has to have 35 square feet, has to be able to see sunlight. Are you familiar with all of those, or?
Some of it, not all, but some. I will be honest with you, some of it.
Because we were,
Our challenge is that what applies today in the COVID situation, you know, does that even change?
well, we visited the jail that it was 35 per inmate, so it's 70 square feet, but they didn't allow for the commode and the shower, which got 2 feet off.
Yeah, also.
So all of a sudden, instead of being
70.
able to keep the prisoner in there 1 out, or 23 hours and 1 out, they had to let him out 14 hours, which makes more issues for your COs, because you have to have more for them being out than
But I'll thoroughly research that stuff as well, you know, when it gets, you know, because I know probably every state has something different. And I will do, you know, courthouse guidelines, whatever, jail guidelines. But I will be more, I mean, I would definitely do my homework to take care of this, making sure that we're doing what we're supposed to. Hopefully the architect has done their job properly, and we don't have to worry too much about that, but I will definitely be checking that.
And as you said, there's new stuff coming out, you know, we're still doing the keys and, you know, everything electronic now. So.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
Mr. Ellswick,
Yes, sir.
Mr. Byrd, you guys had an impressive interview there. Obviously experience, but you mentioned that you built. Does that mean you were the contractor on the project or just the project manager?
The project's at 10, highlighting him, that he was the project.
I was the project manager.
Okay, but you.
Our company has built several.
Have built.
Yeah.
So does that mean you may be a bidder on our facility?
No.
No.
Okay. Obviously, you've got the experience, hope we can afford you, but
You will.
as far as looking to save money, that was something you said. What about value engineering? What's your point on that? Because we've heard that's not a good thing.
Well, yeah, and so that's why some people call it value management versus value engineering, because it has a bad connotation of cut, right? The one thing, when we review the documents, we're gonna provide suggestions on, in this courthouse, this jail facility, we did something different and saved some money. But we're not, you're so late in the game in design, we don't wanna delay the schedule. So we're not gonna come back and make drastic things that you're gonna pay the architect to redesign. That's not our intention. Our intention is to do, like a lot of our courthouses and jail facilities that we've recently done in Virginia. Virginia has a process where you could do an owner direct purchase and save on sales tax, 5.3%. And so that adds up to, we usually save 1% to 2% or more on a project. And it's a process we implement and nothing has to change, right? And so we just look at ways to save money with not compromising the things that the judges or anybody wants.
Okay, and also you said Tim was going to locate here. Is that
Yes, sir.
correct? It doesn't matter, it's irrelevant where you're at now, but, and.
I live in Roanoke, Virginia.
Roanoke, okay. Well, that's
His
not
wife
too
lives-
My
far.
wife, let's put it this way, my wife lives in Roanoke.
I got you.
She's still
I see her 1 or 2 days a week, maybe.
He's also in the real estate business.
Give your card.
Don't leave before I tell you. No kidding though, but you said you would be on site every day.
Yes, sir.
Does that mean 5 days, 7 days, or whatever?
Whatever's required.
All right, and when, just you?
Just me, yes,
Just
full time.
you. Well, I didn't know if there would be some other eyes as well as your own on this project, or just yours.
So we would prefer that he'd have somebody, he can do it. And that's, we're trying to be cognizant of your budget. He can do it. I mean, this is a very large, complex project.
Sure.
And so we would propose that if the board budget could afford it, that we had an assistant project manager, let them do some of the paperwork while he's looking at
Like
stuff
I'm
out.
looking at the construction
Field.
stuff and let them do that paperwork.
But if the budget won't allow it, we'll do it, we'll handle it.
You guys hit it very much, you know, we want you to get it right. If you're our project manager, we want you to get it right. We need and desire so much for a successful project.
Well, I'll tell you, that is one of my things that I've always strived in, is to perfection and sometimes to the fault. Quality is my number one thing. If the specifications say you're supposed to mix that dirt with some fertilizer, I expect you to mix the dirt with some fertilizer. Not just throw some grass seed down, because it's never going to grow. You know, if there's a detail, I pay a lot of close attention to details. Casework details, whatever they might be, rebar details. Because I've had to, many times, say, Mr. Contractor, this rebar is not right. There's supposed to be 10 bars and you have 8. Or there's 6 number 6 and there's supposed to be number 7. So, I'm very detail oriented.
And you express that to the general contractor in a way that we're not fighting one another.
Yes, sir. I have worked very well with different contractors. And as so far, I've been able to work with everyone that I've dealt with.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Concern I would have, if you get sick or you want to go on vacation, have you got somebody?
Yes, we do have other people. We've
Yeah.
got Curtis, we've got Brandon, and also Mr. Wheeler could come help us as well. Plus, we could pull the guy that may be at the,
We're doing several projects in far southwest Virginia, not just right over the state line, that
we could get someone
we'll
here
always
to
have,
cover me.
or we'll bring them from Franklin. The idea is myself or Brandon will always be.
Anyone else? There.
Commissioning. What's your all's thoughts on us retaining someone who does commissioning services for the system?
I think commissioning is very important. What I found is, yes, the contractor's supposed to do all that stuff. But in the end, you want somebody to say, that's an expert at that, saying, okay, make this thing go up 80 minutes. You know, make it come down. I'm a very good advocate of it. Curtis, what is your thoughts?
I'm an advocate of it, and I'm very much an advocate of it on a jail facility, because you don't want people coming back in there while you got inmates in there trying to fix the HVAC and dealing with it. So I would highly recommend commissioning so that it's right when you turn the keys over. Nobody has to go back in the building. You don't want them mixing with inmates.
Tim, is there a certain area in your experience in a project where you could find cost savings? I mean, is there, like when you start reviewing the plans, you know, there's certain, I'm gonna go look here, because this is where my experience tells me there may be some.
Yes, you can look at finishes. That's one. What type of HVAC system's there, which we're not really gonna redesign it, it's been designed. A lot of it's gonna be aesthetics. Curtis, site work, possibly.
Running utilities.
You know, what kind of utilities, where they gotta go, is there a better way to do it?
We've just seen where the design documents may have a sewer line running here, and way over here. When at the end of the day, we can sit down with the engineer and go, well, why don't you just do it here and just save 500 feet? And it does the same thing. And a lot of times they say, well, yeah, why wouldn't we do that? So
See, at the end of the day, I feel like the project manager's gonna have to show us that they're worth their money, compared to the right general contractor.
That is correct.
So that's what we need to hear. We need to feel that.
I feel like the greatest opportunity is before those documents go out for bid, I'll tell you what saves money and stuff a lot of times, just making sure they're complete and they're clean and they're easy for somebody to bid.
And the
Because if there's a lot of
detail-
confusion,
Yeah.
people just throw money at it.
And details, they gotta have the details in the drawing, because that's where you get burned. Well, we didn't have this detail for that wall at the top of the wall.
And change order and
Change order, whatever.
It may be low on bid day, but you pay for it eventually, right? So try to avoid that.
It's the problem is we just don't have a lot of time to review at this point. What we'll hop right on this we were hired.
Anyone else? Thank y'all for being here.
Thank you for the opportunity.
We appreciate it.
Anybody have anything to say? Attitude? We'll meet here tomorrow at 5.
I'll try to, he wants to do that. Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
you.
Have a good evening.
But I'm ready now. It's fresh on
I don't know. I have to check with my business.
You have more comment?